and experiences to her leadership workshops offered through Blackhawk Technical College's Workforce and Community Development Division. Starting as a full-time marketing instructor at the college in 2004, she moved to the WCD in 2016 as the workforce training specialist. Her main focus is training leaders at all levels of organizations to become excellent people leaders. Cindy enjoys meeting and working with employees of all ages and backgrounds as they pursue their professional development goals. Her interactive and fun workshops provide practical skills leaders need to make an immediate difference on the job. Having supervised people in union and non-union organizations, she brings a first-hand collection of experiences to training that makes credible and immediate connections with those she serves. When Cindy is not facilitating face-to-face workshops, you'll find her creating curriculum, designing online workshops, consulting, and coaching leaders in Rock and Green counties. Cindy is a Real Colors certified facilitator and an Everything DISC partner and certified workplace training facilitator. In 2020, Cindy was chosen to serve on the Future Talent Council based in Stockholm, Sweden. The advisory board committee she serves on collects ideas, discusses issues, and will propose how best to train facility around the world to meet the needs of future learners. She and her husband enjoy living in the country with their 2 dogs and cats. They enjoy gardening, a home orchard, and visiting friends and family. And when safe, they will enjoy traveling once again, won't we all? Cindy, go ahead and take it from here.
Hey, thank you, Amy, and hello and welcome everyone today. It's good to see lots of faces and some names that I recognize and some new names that I'm meeting for the first time. So let's get talking about emotional intelligence. This is one of my favorite topics, by the way, and I'll tell you what, it's one of the top 5 soft skills that employers are looking for worldwide right now. And as you probably might guess, it has everything to do with emotions, okay? And so I want to lead you through the whole idea of emotional intelligence and why this is such an in-demand skill in our workplaces today, and how we might improve our own emotional intelligence. Another word used for that is maturity levels. And we were just talking before we got started today that through the pandemic and everything else that's going on in our world, and we're finding that people with a higher level of emotional intelligence seem to muddle through a little easier than those who maybe don't. And so we're going to find out why that is today as well, and then why this is such an important skill to have in the workplace, and you can hone it. So let's get started. So I'm going to share my screen with you. I have a PowerPoint, and so bear with me while I get that started. Okay, all right, here we go. All right, very good. So again, I'm Cindy Leverenz from Blackhawk Tech. This is my normal gig. I'm a leadership developer and talent development individual. And for the college, I guess I'm kind of one of those best kept secrets, so to speak. And I'm kept really busy with workshops, training of all kinds, and consulting and coaching. I coach individuals and teams to improve in the workplace. And so I'm here to share this wonderful topic with you. And I'm going to have you be involved if you choose. Okay, so if you do, just feel free to unmute and speak up. So here are the basics of emotional intelligence. And it really comes down to self-control. Right. And so there's really 4 components. And if you look at lots of different studies, people who devote their life to psychologically studying emotional intelligence, you'll see that they identify self-awareness. In other words, am I aware of my own emotions and how that's affecting my behavior and for those around me? Can I manage that? So self-management is a key component of this. How well am I understanding my emotions? And how am I managing them, right? Social awareness is that 3rd component that, what are we aware that, our emotions are affecting others around us? And then can we then manage the relationships based on how well we are interacting and using empathy with one another? So that's really the gist of emotional intelligence. I want to share next with you a bit of a short video, and this is a gentleman by the name of Travis Bradbury. You may have heard him before. He's one of those that is very popular, has devoted his life to studying and spreading the word about emotional intelligence. So here's a short video from Travis that explains really well what is emotional intelligence. So let's take a look at this.
We owe our understanding of emotional intelligence largely to a gentleman by the name of Howard Gardner. He's a Harvard psychologist. And he started his career at a time when people took the meaning behind a joke, a very old joke, far too seriously. And that joke is, what do kids call the nerds once they grow up? Anybody heard this? Right, they call them boss. And the people really believed the meaning behind this joke, and that is that IQ wasn't just the most important determinant of success in life.
Oops, sorry about that. My bad. I shouldn't have touched it. Let's start it over. There we go. Try it again.
We owe our understanding of emotional intelligence largely to a gentleman by the name of Howard Gardner. He's a Harvard psychologist. And he started his career at a time when people took the meaning behind a joke, a very old joke, far too seriously. And that joke is, what do kids call the nerds once they grow up? Anybody heard this? Right, they call them boss. And the people really believed the meaning behind this joke, and that is that IQ wasn't just the most important determinant of success in life, it was the sole determinant of success in life. It's all that mattered. So picture Gardner. He's a guy here in the 1960s, just finished his PhD, was starting his career, trying to decide how he's going to make a name for himself, put a stake in the ground and conduct research. And study after study came across his desk that showed that IQ predicted just 20% of how people do in life. And people of average IQs outperform those with the highest IQs 70% of the time. So here's Gardner saying, we're wrong. We really don't understand what makes people succeed in life. I want to understand this other 80% of success. And he was the first to propose this idea of multiple intelligences, with emotional intelligence being one of the largest skill sets that encompass what makes people successful. Here's how this works. Everything that we experience in the world around us enters at the base of the brain. So if the signals of the sound of me speaking traveling into your ear have to go to the base of your brain. If someone bumps into you and you feel that, it has to go to the base of your brain, and it travels across your brain through the limbic system. This means the limbic system is where emotions are generated. This means that you have 27 emotional experiences every waking hour. That's about 400 emotional experiences every single day. This is important because you have this emotional experience before the signals travel to the rational area of your brain. So you have an emotional reaction to events before you have a rational reaction to them. Emotional intelligence combines the two. It's your ability to respond with reason to these emotional reactions that your body is naturally having. This is an evolutionary artifact that's really long ago was a survival mechanism. If a saber-toothed tiger jumps out of the bushes, having a quick emotional reaction is a very good thing because you're going to turn and run. When a colleague sends you a curt email or says something you don't like in a meeting and you have a quick emotional reaction, that's probably not going to do good things for you. So emotional intelligence is the mastery of that, the flow of information between these two areas in the brain.
There we go. Awesome. Very good. Okay, so that was Travis. Okay. Come on here. Let's go. Next. Let's just regroup a little bit and keep in mind what Travis has just told us about emotional intelligence. And let's just review what some of the major emotions are that we might feel up to 400 times a day. Isn't that an amazing statistic? So here are the basic emotions, and this is fascinating. When I started developing this course for our online workshops last summer, I ran across this National Geographic publication, and it popped out at me, emotions, and I go, oh my gosh, this is so timely because I'm working on this emotional intelligence workshop. And so in this magazine, they identified through lots of research, you know, some of the feel-good emotions, and you can see what pages they're on here. So we get human love, happiness, animal love was huge with our pets and such, gratitude and hope. So those are, you know, real positive, right? We have the emotions of wonder, which is surprise or interest, amusement, and awe. And notice down the middle, those distressing emotions, which we, you know, have a little bit more negative connotation to. Although like fear can also be very a good indicator that I need to be aware of my surroundings and what's going on, right? You can see all those different emotions for sure, including disgust, anxiety, jealousy and envy, and anger. And by the way, let me tell you about anger. Anger sometimes manifests itself from fear or anxiety, you know, and it's one of those very acceptable emotions in our world, especially for men. And so, you know, that anger is not as acceptable from women, but it's a society of cultural thing. So we're not going to get so much into that today, but you can kind of see, you know, what kind of emotions might we feel during the day? Okay. All right. Let's go on here. Here we go. So Travis talked about the limbic system. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about how this happens in our brains and why our emotions are connected to every thought that we have. Okay. So remember, he said that every sensory has to come through the base of our brain. The base of our brain, that's the oldest part of our brains in human development, called the reptilian brain, or dinosaur brain, whatever you prefer, right? It's also called the lizard brain. Okay. I know some people are offended by that term, but I think it's pretty cool. I've got a PowerPoint slide next that'll share that with you. But it follows in like here in the red part of our the brain, the base of the brain, and we have an emotion. Okay, so as Travis said, you know, that may have been a saber-toothed tiger way long ago when humans were first on this planet, and we had to be reactionary. We had to be very sensible about, do I run, do I fight, or do I hide, right? So it's that freeze, fight, or flight mechanism. And so enters here and it goes into the limbic brain so we can feel that emotion. And then as we develop our thinking, our rational brains, you can see the neocortex there, that allows us to step back and really analyze what's going on and make a reasonable determination. So that's the triune brain, as it's called. We could go into all kinds of brain-based studies and things like that, but I think we're just going to keep up here and go on next to talking about the lizard brain. This is one of my favorite things. Look at this. Again, fight, flight, or freeze. And we no longer have the saber-toothed tigers, right? But our saber-toothed tigers now are the people that we work with, in a sense. So if we're in a meeting, for example, and someone says something that really wasn't all that nice, or was extremely nice, it's got your attention. It's an emotional reaction immediately, right? And so this is, I think, a really cute graphic that when you're dealing with the emotions, lizard brain has no time for facts. So it's immediately going into an emotional context. So focus on survival, and that's what's gotten us here today. And notice who's not here with us. It's the saber-toothed tigers, right? So lizard brain. The next thing I want to share with you is just an amazing thing. When we go back, let me just go back here to show you the brain. This reptilian brain here, there's the amygdala, as it's called, okay? When that gets full of emotion and you're not able to manage your emotions, we call it the amygdala hijack. And you've probably experienced this yourself, that your emotions just have gotten away with you. You may have said something you regret, and you've done something you regret, that's not uncommon. So as we mature and as we start to understand our emotions, then you know what? Then we're better able to control our thoughts and how we then process how we're going to react to someone. Okay. So anyone have any questions or have an experience you'd like to share here at this point in time that where you remember you had an amygdala hijack? Anyone recently? No one wants to share. Okay. We'll keep moving then. All right. The next video is something that I think you're going to find very, very interesting. Okay. This is another leader in emotional intelligence. His name is Daniel Goleman. And this is another bit of a TED Talk. He was in, I believe it was in Mexico. And he reveals a very interesting brain-based research, a study that was done in Italy, and why it explains how we can sit in a room with someone and feel an emotion, even if you're not even speaking, you're just sitting in a room with someone. And so think about this as we are in our workplaces, and we may even be just sitting near someone or in a meeting with someone, and suddenly there is an emotion that you are sharing. So let's take a look at this, if you will.
If you ask people honestly about how they feel about their job, a very large proportion are disengaged. It's just a job. I just do enough to keep it. That statement is a rough index of a person having too little cortisol. They're in the wrong brain state at work. As you get such people more motivated, more interested, more engaged, they rise up this arc toward the optimal zone. However, if you give them too much pressure, too little support, too little time, too little staff, too much to do, they start to feel overwhelmed and they keep going to the right and performance suffers. So the art of leadership is to help people get and stay in the optimal state for performance. That is how you get your best return on investment from a salary. And from a neurological point of view, this means helping people get and stay in the best internal state, the best state of their brain. This optimal state is called flow. Flow was discovered by researchers who asked one simple question of a huge variety of people. The question was, tell me about a time when you outdid yourself. Even you were surprised at how well you did. And they asked ballerinas and basketball players and chess champions and surgeons, business people, all kinds of people. And what they discovered was that it didn't matter what domain of skill they were involved in. Everyone who was outstanding at that moment was in the identical internal state. And that state is characterized by several things. One is unperturbable attention. Their focus is 200%. Another element is that you're completely flexible and adaptable. Whatever comes up, you can handle it. Another is that your skills are challenged to their highest level, sometimes a little beyond. Another, a very important element, is it feels great. You get a kind of a rapture or bliss. There's a joy in being in a flow state. So the state where people are performing at their best is also a state where they feel at their best. And a smart leader, an effective leader, an emotionally intelligent leader can help people get and stay in that state. Here's some tips. How to create flow. One is clear goals. Clarity about what to do, what the goal is, but flexibility in how to do it. The second is immediate feedback. It helps to know how you're doing. Helps to know if you're getting closer to the goal. The third is to challenge and grow that person's skill set. Give them an assignment that stretches them. And more fundamentally, to match people's abilities with the tasks you give them. You don't want someone highly talented to be doing something that's boring for them. Then they're disengaged. You don't want someone to be in the wrong domain of skill. So the leader's task, from this point of view, is to help people get and stay in flow. And how are you going to do that? Well, those were some ways, but you also have kind of a secret weapon. And that has to do with a new discovery. It's called the social brain. This discovery came in the last 5 or 10 years when brain scientists stopped studying one brain in one body and one person and started studying two brains in two bodies in two people while they interacted. And it turned out that there were entire circuits of the brain that hadn't been discovered before because they'd never looked this way. And these circuits are designed to, like a neural radar, to sense what's going on in the other person's brain and to lock in to that and to have a silent brain-to-brain conversation no matter what else is going on. These were discovered in a very intriguing way. The big discovery is called mirror neurons. That's the radar. Mirror neurons were discovered when some scientists in Italy were studying the brain of a monkey, and they were looking at the part of the brain that moves the body, and they're studying just one cell at a time. One day they were looking at a brain cell that only fired, it was only active when the monkey raised its arm. It's the only time. Then one day the cell started firing and the monkey wasn't moving. And they're completely puzzled, what's going on? Then they realized it was a hot day, a lab assistant had gone out for a gelato, he was standing in front of the monkey, and every time the lab assistant raised the gelato, the monkey's brain cell for the same activity fired. That was the discovery of something that happens in us all the time. Whenever we're with another person, it turns out we have cells in our brain that are matching precisely what's going on in the other person. This is essential. It gives us an immediate unconscious sense of what's going on. What are we doing? It keeps the interaction running smoothly. So the mirror neuron creates a brain-to-brain bridge that senses movement, emotion, intention. It's why emotions are contagious. It had been known for several years in psychology, decades actually, that if you take two strangers, have them come into a lab, fill out a little checklist, how are you feeling right now? And then sit looking at each other in silence for 2 minutes, and then fill out that same checklist. The person in that pair who's most expressive transfers their emotional state to the other person in 2 silent minutes. We never knew how. We never knew why, but now we understand. Emotions are contagious. We're constantly sending and receiving them, but there's a special condition, a special caveat for leaders, because it's human nature that people pay most attention to and put most importance on what the most powerful person in that group says and does. The leader is the center, for better or for worse. So when I say you have a secret weapon to help people get into that better state for performance, I'm talking about using the social brain skillfully. What does that look like? The key point for any company is that whoever in your company is the interface of your customers or clients makes them feel better or worse. And how they feel at that moment is not how they feel about that guy or that woman. It's how they feel about your company. So managing the emotional state of people is extremely important from the highest level to the outer fringe where your company contacts your customers.
Ooh. I've got a wild mouse here. Okay. All right, so let's just pause it for a minute. I'm going to stop sharing, okay? And I want to just see what you're thinking about. There was a lot in this video in particular regarding the brain and leadership and keeping people engaged all through emotions and that emotional connection through mirror neurons. It's probably one of the reasons why some of you have this experience sometime in your life where you met someone for the first time and you've connected immediately, you know, after just a few short minutes, right? Can anyone give an example or share a story about, you know, leadership in the workplace or someone you've met and how you've connected from an emotional perspective right away? Anyone have that experience?
Well, Cindy, I don't know that I have a specific example, but
Yeah.
it reminds me of, I mean, I am, you know, lucky enough to be able to talk to a lot of people and a lot of businesses in my job. And I have a lot of meetings, and it's interesting to see how fast I can connect with people in those meetings, people I've never met before. So that it sort of sparked that, you know, when I'm with these new people, and, you know, sometimes we connect right away, and other times it's a real struggle for me to find the connection to be able to relate to that person.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Amy. And it's absolutely spot on, is that there are some people that are very open. And so you were probably that person very open, and they connect with you probably just as easy. But when you work with people who just really are not open and not willing to share feelings, that's a tough call, right? It's really, you have to spend more time and energy to make that connection, if that makes sense. And sometimes you just kind of step back and you kind of wonder, like, what am I doing? But remember that we all come to the world with a lot of different experiences, our backgrounds, our frame of reference and such. Some people may be purposely guarded. It's a protection mechanism, right? And so when we think about this in the big picture, is that, you know, lots of times we tend to want to judge people or label them right away, because they're maybe not responding to us like we expect them to, or, you know, maybe they are maybe a little bit socially awkward for some reason, and it's okay. They're where they need to be at that moment based on their experience and knowledge and you know, maturity level. And so it does take a little bit more energy, but eventually when you work with people, you take keep an open mind about it. I think then we use empathy to consider, wow, okay, so this person's this person, and it's okay. I just have to take a little bit different approach in how to connect with this individual. And then, you know what? It's amazing when you do that and you do more of that in your life. There's a lot less stress that you have to take on if you just let it go and just do your best, right? Anyone else have a story care to share?
Cindy, I'll chime in. It's not much, similar to Amy, it's not much of a story, but I just, you know, highlighted when you spoke about emotions are contagious. Just looking back even at, you know, the meetings and the people that we encounter through our day-to-day lives, it's so true that, you know, you feed off of other people's emotions, whether they're in that state of flow, or if somebody's brings really high energy or low energy. So I just had to circle that because I thought it's, you know, hit the nail on the head. It's so true that emotions are very contagious.
Yes, right. So be careful of negative emotions and negative people around you. If you're in a leadership position, you want to take and make sure that you're addressing that. And the way to do that is just pull people aside privately and just ask them, hey, is everything okay? You know, and oftentimes, you know, that is a learned thing from, you know, a family kind of disposition. And there's some families that everything's very negative and that's how they've learned to deal with the world around them. It's kind of like their coping mechanism, where there's others that it's all very happy, upbeat, easygoing, that kind of thing. It can be learned, you know, and so it's something to take into consideration. But if you as from a leadership perspective, you know, be careful of that and make sure that you always have a very consistent, positive, emotional standpoint, so to speak. That people, you know, they're going to buy into that and they're going to feed off of that as well. And so you have really an amazing opportunity to influence that in your workplace and not avoid people who are negative. You want to actually address that. But I know it's easier said than done. That's why we're here talking about it, right? Having emotions in the workplace is really tough. And I have to say that, you know, there are times when people come to me full of emotion, especially if someone's in tears. I really have a hard time with that. But I have learned over the years that I keep a box of tissues handy and I immediately empathize with them, say, tell me what's going on. How can I help? And even though it's just, I don't want to, but but I do, you know, and you probably all had a similar experience like that, right? Let's keep moving on then. And so you keep thinking about that, but this mirror neurons is fascinating, you know, and really we're not even aware of what's going on around us lots of times, but we can influence people and sit in the same room and have an emotion of someone because you're sharing those. It's just thank God for that hot day in Italy and the monkey and the gelato, right? We would never have known this otherwise. Okay, going back to the PowerPoint, and as I do here too, I want to just a second, that didn't work. It's not sharing. I'm going to share something else with you first. I've got a couple of handouts that I want to showcase for you. And let me see if I've got this right. Yes, here we go. So this is kind of, if you can you all see that? I hope so. I'm just going to place that right over the PowerPoint for now. These are some prized emotional intelligence traits. And so just not going to read them to you, but I want you to take a look at them. I'm going to pick out a couple of them. Assertiveness versus aggressiveness or passiveness is a positive emotion. It's a great emotional intelligence trait. So if you can ask for what you want in a way that's professional and appropriate, then that's great. Self-control is another one. We've all had to develop and hone our coping skills this past year, right? And so some of us are better than others at doing that because of, you know, here we've got all these changes, right? And change is a tough thing for all of us, especially like with the pandemic and how, you know, those of us who are super social, you know, that kind of went away a bit. And so we've had to cope emotionally in that regard. And some, you know, not doing so well. And so we just have to have some empathy for them, and leaders, pay attention to your people in that regard. At least, you know, be willing to have conversations, to listen. Listening skills, you see that's on here. Asking good questions to get conversations going, really important. Critical thinking skills, right? And so as you can see, it goes into everything. So determining between facts and fiction, you know, and what you believe in and such, how you determine through your critical thinking skills, what's a credible truth or not. And then I love this one, sense of humor. You gotta keep a good sense of humor, and people with good emotional intelligence skills are able to do that most of the time, you know, so just saying. And on the bottom of this list, I think that we all appreciate are people who are even-tempered. So very consistent in their ability to interact with people, roll with punches during the day, so to speak, and you know, and that have good outcomes for sure. So let me put that one down below, and then I'm going to go back here again. I want to stop that sharing, and I need to go out here and find another. Hang on, where is it? Okay, prize traits. I've got another one here I want to share with you, so bear with me. Oops, okay. It must have decided to not join us today. Here we go. One of the things that really is really important are the low emotional traits. So here's another listing, okay? This is really very interesting, and why it's so important to study emotional intelligence and practice it and be very mindful of what we do from a day-to-day basis and from sometimes a minute-to-minute basis, and see if you can relate to some of these things here. So we prize those people with high intelligence, and low emotional intelligence is the problematic or frustrating part of working with people. And so if you have employees with low EQ, they require a lot more of your time and attention and your patience. Okay, and if you run into people like that in, say, your personal life or public or whatever, you can clearly, see the difference, right? So most leaders say this is where their people problems lie. So let's just take a look at some of these, if we will. You can see, let me just enlarge this a little bit, that people with low emotional intelligence, so low EQs, lose their emotions in the workplace. They're not able to manage them. They just let it fly. And so they really have a hard time working with a lot of different people. It comes across as angry, anxious, sometimes just silent is how they go. And so they have a hard time with deadlines, a full workload. And don't have to take notes, guys. I can send this to you. They can't get along with the coworkers, but they don't get along with your clients and your suppliers either. So a lot of backstabbing, griping, bickering, those kinds of things. They don't like to cooperate with team members. They'd rather work alone. They don't listen well, and they don't communicate well. It's just, you can see where it goes here, right? Here's a big thing that leaders really complain about is they really can't handle feedback. They look at it as kind of, they go defensive, and they look at it as a personal assault to them. And so how do we approach them as leaders and help them understand that it's not a personal attack, it really is constructive, and we want everyone to be able to be their absolute best. And so it's all in your approach as a leader and understanding that, I know it's hard to receive feedback sometimes, but let's talk about this. So if we can have a conversation, people have a better understanding of what we're trying to communicate, right? Lack of empathy for others. They don't make an effort to get along. They just as soon stay along the sidelines. They don't cope with change. These are the people, guys, that pay attention to what they say. You probably heard this before. Well, why should we do it that way? We've always done it this way, or if it's not broke, let's not fix it, right? And those are people who are really afraid of change, and lots of times because they equate that change to a change in their jobs, which they look at themselves as a key part of the job. So how do we then work with the change processes to help people buy into those things and to accept them and move along? Because we all have to be changing. That's just a key component of leadership, is to keep that change moving forward, because we need to remain relevant to our customers, our clients, to maybe the communities that we serve. So we got to have everybody on board, right? So they have a hard time sometimes taking responsibility for the actions, placing blame elsewhere. It wasn't my fault, or you didn't give me enough information, or the deadline was too soon, things like that. They really have a hard time sometimes too when they do make mistakes of recovering from that. So being less resilient, bouncing back, and so on and so forth. And sometimes they rather escalate a conversation into a disagreement. And again, that's a learned thing that they can also unlearn. And so setting expectations in the workplace of how people are expected to interact and behave is a big thing. And then also being empathetic where people might be coming from, and that they're in the learning mode, so to speak, that they, once they know better, they can probably do better. But being empathetic in a way that you're there to help them succeed and help pull them up. So I will make sure that Maggie and company have this handout so that you can take a better a look at that for sure. Okay. Okay. So let's go back to, are there any questions at this point? Okay. Okay. Let's go back here to the PowerPoint. And we've just gone through the high versus low EQ. My is not wanting to work with me today. Hang on. Are you able to see my screen? I'm not able to advance it. There we go. Got it.
Yeah, I can see it.
There we
Cindy.
go.
You're
You
good.
got it? Okay, very good. So I have a little technical difficulty on my end here. Okay, so if we practice understanding, stepping back and understanding our emotions, remember coming in the back of the brain, we have the emotional emotion or feeling connected to a thought. Get to the thought processing part of our brain so that we can really think about it. So I always think of emotions or feelings as data. And what is the data telling us? That's what we have to analyze and determine what's going on here. Why am I feeling this way? And why do I, care so much? Or why is this really making me angry? Right? Or why is, oh my gosh, I'm so happy about this. And why, right? So if we keep mindful attention on this every day, and I know it's hard, but we got, I suggest, if you do this, it really changes your world. It leads to better communication in the workplace, teamwork, productivity, quality, and profits. Who doesn't want that, especially as a leader? And so it boils down to how can we connect with one another emotionally, and how do we then become the role models for what we expect as behavior based on those emotions in the workplace, right? So if someone has an anger problem, it's maybe there's fear behind that anger. And let's have a discussion about that. It's inappropriate to show anger in some cases. And so let's talk about it. One of the things that I have to caution about, though, is that whatever emotions we are feeling, those are our emotions, and they should never be negated. But maybe we can have discussions with each other that help us understand where those emotions are coming from and why we feel the way we do, right? Again, think of them as data. We have to analyze them to determine what are they trying to tell us, right? So who would better communication, more teamwork, better productivity, quality, and profits. It makes a big difference. It's a big deal, okay? All right, so some of the leadership traits that we find that are really in demand, especially connected with emotional intelligence and our neurological well-being and such, is self-control, for sure. Assertiveness, listening skills, paying attention to our tone and tone of voice, our body language, everything. And then how resilient are we as things change and maybe don't go necessarily our way, right? So leadership traits are, we're looking for those in a leader. And if you study the emotions and understand your own and develop some empathy for people. Now, mind you, I've always had some pushback from people who say, well, wait a minute, Cindy, if I'm empathetic, but I want someone to change their behavior in the workplace, does that mean I'm coddling them? And the answer to that is absolutely not. You can be patient and kind with employees, but you can also be firm, okay? Yes, I understand how you're feeling, but let's have a conversation about how that emotion is maybe getting in your way, is becoming a barrier, for your success, and have those candid conversations, if that makes sense, okay? Right? Here's something I found very interesting. And this is from Power of Emotional Intelligence TED Talk from Travis Bradbury. It's just kind of a very interesting thing, and I don't know, and it's hard to read because I snagged it off the site. But anyhow, down below the lower part of the graphic, it says the EQ score, but this is an individual person versus a supervisor, a manager, director, executive or vice president, a senior executive, and CEO. You notice how the emotional quotient and job title, where it peaks. So supervisors and managers, those leaders, really need to have excellent emotional intelligence. And look how that we lose emotional intelligence as we move up in rank. Okay, and if you've had experience with different people at those higher levels, let's think about that. It's because they have higher level responsibilities, more responsibilities, where they have to keep a level head, right? So they're not necessarily thinking about others' emotions, although they do not all fall in this category, but they're leaving that up to the supervisors and managers, the people leaders, okay, to manage that part for them, because they have other decisions that need to be made that really probably make a big financial impact on their organizations, right? So it's kind of stands to reason, and then why you may have had kind of an experience with some folks at those higher levels that, you know, maybe wasn't as what you expected, let's put it that way. So because they may not be able to empathize as well. So it's just an interesting observation, okay? So how do we improve our emotional intelligence, you ask? Well, there's a couple of different ways. There's actually lots of ways. One is to reduce your stress and relax a little bit more. And I think we're all for that, right? Get more sleep, get better sleep. I've been trying to do that for years, by the way. My brain takes over sometimes when my head hits the pillow. And also, you see the coffee cup there. There's a suggestion that we need to reduce our caffeine intake, you know, and they said that would be very helpful. I don't know, I'm a tea drinker, so I don't know, I can't tell you about that myself. But let's take a look then at the next slide that gives us an idea of how to actually improve our emotional well-being, okay? And this is out of the University of Berkeley. They have a center called Greater Good Science Center, and they put together this listing of how, for our emotions, how we can have higher emotional intelligence and by understanding our emotions. So you can see, if you want a copy of this too, I can send that as well. Label your stresses, write about it, talk about it, so you can work through them. Again, that analysis, what is this telling us? Savor what is beautiful. Some of you may have been familiar with like forest walks that are very popular in Japan and are catching into popularity here in the United States. Just go out and be in nature. That's a very good thing to do, especially when it becomes spring, it gets green in Wisconsin again. That's just going to be most excellent. Cultivate hope by imagining your best possible self. So lots of times it's how we think of ourselves and view it, the world around us. And you can kind of see the rest of the things. Practice loving kindness meditation, mindful breathing. If you've not tried that, try it. It's awesome. Give yourself some distance from the negative emotions for anger, fear, sadness, and things like that. Take a break from it and watch your, if you are in the habit of a negative self-talk, be very careful about that. And I like that they asked, will it matter next week, a month from now, a year from now? And that kind of keeps it into perspective. And then at the very bottom of this, this is one of my favorite things, regain your sense of awe at little things in the world, you know. It could be the butterfly, it can be, you know, the sunset, or just, you know, the giggle of a baby when they learn how to giggle. I mean, you just can't help but be happy with that, right? So those are some of the ideas in that regard, right? So again, emotional intelligence skills improve the mindfulness and practice so we can gain self-control, self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management are keys. These things work in the workplace and in our personal lives. And if you're in a leadership position, and we all are leaders, it's really important to hone those skills for sure. Okay, and that's where I'll end it today. I appreciate your asking me to be here on this day. And there is an emotional intelligence at work white paper, which is very well written. And Maggie and I think Amy have that for you. And if you want the other 2 handouts, I can do that, plus that lovely graphic at the end. If you want to learn more about how do I relax more, you certainly. Blackhawk Tech through our Workforce and Community Development Division is where I work. Lots of different training workshops. We provide consulting and coaching and such. That's my email address. Feel free to reach out. And both Maggie and Amy know where to find me. So thank you all. Questions?
Yeah, we have a few minutes. If anybody has any questions, we have 5 minutes left of the program. Anybody, I don't see any in the chat, but does anybody have anything?
Any pressing issues or things at work or with a particular individual that we can kind of troubleshoot? Put some practical applications at work?
Well, it doesn't sound like it.
Doesn't sound like it. Okay.
But everybody, please feel free to reach out to Cindy.
Yep.
You know, her contact information is right here. And, you know, I can see why this can be really a deep dive, more than an hour. So
Yes.
Blackhawk Technical College offers professional training opportunities for this very topic. So please reach out to Cindy if you're interested. And Maggie, I think there's somebody I don't think that the attachments are showing up. I couldn't see them either.
Okay.
So
yeah,
Maggie, share them again.
either that or everybody's going to get a follow-up email, and
Yeah,
I'll include both of those documents
just
that
fine.
Cindy talked about.
Cindy, could you unshare your screen real quickly?
Yes. Oh, sure.
We can all see each other's faces as we say
Yep.
goodbye then.
Yes,
Just
thank
a
you.
couple added notes on the chamber end, a couple upcoming things we have. First of all, I forgot in the beginning to introduce Madison. Madison, I'm not going to make you talk or anything, but give a wave. Madison is a new employee for the Greater Blake Chamber of Commerce, and she's going to be doing some administrative assistant duties, and she's our community concierge. So a big welcome to Madison, and I know this community will welcome her with open arms. A couple of things we have coming up at the chamber. For those of you who don't know, we have a rising professional group here in the Greater Beloit area, and they have an event coming up this Friday, a virtual coffee hour. So if you are a rising professional or you have an employee that's a rising professional and you want to learn more about that coffee hour with the snappers, you can visit rpbeloit.com and sign up to come to the program. It's open to all. And then next week, Tuesday, March 2nd, we have a Beloit City Council forum via Zoom for the candidates for City Council. And then on Thursday, March 4th, we have the same for the Beloit School Board. All of those are available on our website to sign up for. Again, they're all Zoom meetings at this point. We hope to go live in the next month or so, knock on wood, everybody. But for now, we're remaining virtual. With that, I will let you all get back to work, and thanks again for coming, and a big thank you to Cindy and our staff. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everybody.